Welcome to a Real Man Wood podcast. This is Chris Liss, your host, and I'm joined by my co-host, Dalton Del Don of Yahoo Sports. And hopefully we don't have a total fail on the video side like we did last week. And it was actually kind of a fail on the audio side too. So I moved to a new apartment. I got a new internet. I think it's faster. I like this new apartment. And I don't know if you can see it. I'm wearing a scarf because a real man wears a scarf anyway. But it's not just that. It's also because it's fucking cold in here. These old apartments, there's no central heat. You basically buy space heaters. But since we moved in May 1st, we're like, fuck it. We can just live with it for like a week or two and it's going to be warm because Heather had to buy so much shit. So like I don't know if you can hear an echo. There's like literally no furniture here except my desk. And I'm sitting on like Sasha's stool because I don't even have a desk chair yet. It's all coming Monday. But I have a bed. And so I've made the transition. And that's not code for anything, the transition.
Right. Yeah, no, last week we were outside, a beautiful backdrop, saw some olive trees, and it didn't record. Now this week there's something else. First of all, it's taken us about 20 minutes to start this. It's probably going to be some other disaster, and I'm sure people will hate the echo. So it's always something, but we're making progress. Your video quality on my end looks much better. So what was the precipice of the move? Tell us about that. You're in the same city, so what's going on there with the new digs?
Yeah, we just moved across town. Like basically, we decided we're going to stay here a while, and that other place is like Airbnb that we sort of bought out for long term. The landlord turned out to be kind of a douche, but it wasn't really about that. He was fine, insofar as while we were there. But basically, like the summer got more expensive because they Airbnb that shit. And then so we would like leave the entire summer and then we'd have to coordinate with him, like when to go back. And then all the shit we have here, like all our stuff, we didn't have furniture. We'd have to like store in these like closets in the garage and all these places, give some to friends. It's a real pain in the ass before you're making an international trip to have to like store all your shit. So we just felt like if we moved, we could go to a cheaper place, have a place to keep everything, and also get out of like the trendy tourist area that we were kind of sick of. It's like it's overrun now, like by tourists. Not as many Americans. There's some, like you hear some, Americans speaking English, a lot of French and other Europeans, but it's just like, it's overrun like that part of Lisbon. So we're in more of like a neighborhood part of Lisbon. I don't know how many of our listeners are familiar with New York City, but it was as though we were like living in like the West Village or like Soho or something like that. And we moved to the Upper West Side. We moved to more of like a family neighborhood where it's not like overrun by tourists.
So you're happy with the move then?
Yeah, it's great. This place, first of all, this place is 2/3 of the price, and it's twice as big.
Sasha have to change schools?
No, same school. Equidistant from the school. Her life's pretty much the same, except she has a gigantic bed made out of some organic mattress that's like the best mattress ever. I'm jealous. Like I was like lying in that bed. I was like, damn, we should have got one for us. Our bed is nice too, though, rather than the piece of shit bed that was way too saggy and soft that I was sleeping in for the last year and a half. That was hell. I just needed to move out just for the fucking bed alone. Is reason to move out. But this place is great, and it's a lot cheaper. It costs a lot to, like, furnish. Like, we're not even done, and, like, I bought a couple of nice flat screens, By the way, when you're buying if you were to buy a new flat screen, I don't know how long it's been since you bought a TV, what would you look for? What would be the features?
Well, I want it to be, 4K and like the highest series. I just got one actually not that long ago, a Samsung like 9 series, I think 55 inches. Okay. And it was actually more expensive than I thought it was going to be because I went with the higher series, and I'm not sure it was worth it, but I know you can get a really decent, quality big TV these days for $1,000.
Oh, you spent more than $1,000? You're out of your fucking mind. I got a 55 inch, I got a, Philips. I got a Philips. Yeah. 55 inch 4K HDR for 600 euros maybe. That's like $750.
Yeah, I got a Samsung with 1,200. So there you go.
1,200. No, that's a nutless monkey move. I got the same TV you got. It's the same fucking thing.
I'm not quite sure about the quality, but yeah, it sounds like you got a pretty
4K
good
HDR. Anyway, the funny thing is when I went to the websites and I was like, okay, what do you need? What do you need in a TV? Like, what's important? They're like, yeah, 4K HDR, which is like the contrast. I don't know what any of this shit means, but I just read a bunch of tech reviews. But then they're like, basically just get the biggest fucking TV you can afford.
Right.
Yeah. And like, we didn't want to go bigger than 55 because that's getting silly.
Yeah, well, it depends how much space you have, but yeah, I didn't go bigger than that. But you said nutless monkey, and I can't let you off the hook with this. I just want to say that you have to be one of the only people in the history of planet Earth to say a real man wears a scarf. I mean,
first of all, a real man does wear a scarf because a real man isn't being dressed by his mom to look, to wear khaki pants and a polo shirt and look the fucking same every single day, and is afraid to have a little style.
Because I'm in a polo shirt. Go on. You have a problem with a polo shirt?
I'm saying, like, come on, dude. Like, fucking have a little bit of style once in your fucking life before you start throwing.
I'm totally fine with a scarf. I'm just saying, I bet you're one of the few people to utter the sentences,
okay.
real man wears a scarf.
You're not criticizing it. You're just saying you find it odd that I would say that a real man will wear a scarf.
Right.
Well, it's fucking cold in here. As I was saying, there's no central heat, and you got to get a heater. And there was so much shit to deal with that we're like getting a heater was not a priority.
Nope.
Moving in May.
Moving's the worst. Moving's the absolute worst.
Dude, you want to hear how bad this shit was? I got sick this weekend because Wednesday and Thursday I got almost no sleep for various reasons. And then Friday, I moved a bunch of shit over, tested out the XM unit, did all the shit, then picked up Sasha from school, took her to her piano lesson, then brought her back home. And then Heather had this friend over. I should have just gone to sleep, but she had this friend over. And she was in the wine business, and we started talking, and she was kind of cool. So I went out to the balcony to drink wine with them. But all my sweaters and coats and all that shit were in the new house. Like, we'd already moved some of that shit in. So I just had like one sweater, and I put on a second sweater, but I didn't have a scarf or a hat or any of that shit. It was cold as shit and windy on the deck. And I just drank through it. I just had like 5 glasses of wine while, just sitting there shivering on the deck until I got drunk enough.
Let her freeze, probably. You had all the clothing to yourself?
What's that?
Did you let the guests freeze outside?
We gave her a blanket, so like she had this blanket, and like I just had like a couple thin sweaters, and it was legitimately cold, and I just drank through it. So next day I woke up Saturday morning, and I'm like, damn, I'm hungover. I feel terrible. I got this headache. I don't feel well at all. It's body aches. I really feel bad. So I like dragged myself out with Sasha and Heather. We would go to this lunch, and I got some wine to like hair the dog it, right? Sure. And get through like half a bottle of the wine, and the hangover's gone. Like I'm like fine. I didn't drink that much. I drank like 5 glasses of wine, and then I realized, oh shit, my hangover's gone. But I'm fucking straight up. I have the flu. Like that's why I feel bad. I have like body aches. Like I feel terrible.
You're only going to make yourself more sick by attacking your immune system.
No, but the wine at least made me feel better. So then I go home, and I'm like that night I'm like shaking and shivering, sweating. Trying to wear a couple sweaters under the covers. Well, on Monday, I had to move the bulk of the shit, right? Which we moved it ourselves because we didn't have furniture, but I had Sasha's table and some heavy books and shit. And this is a third floor walk-up, right? So imagine having like those shakes and the body aches, and you're fucking lifting.
You didn't have Keith Hernandez to help you move either. Yeah, no, that's awful. I always heard it's anecdotal bullshit that being cold causes a cold. It's just like something you think, but I mean, not who's to say you didn't have a bug already, but I'm just saying I've heard that's not really the case, but who knows?
Yeah, I think what happens is your resistance goes down because your body's trying to heat itself, and also I was exhausted too, so I was tired. I just shouldn't have pushed it. Like I knew better. I just wanted to hang out, and I was dumb. So anyway, on Monday I was literally like walking up these 2 flights of stairs, like maybe 12 times each. We had to do 2 rounds and down a flight of stairs with all that shit in the morning, It's a fucking lot of shit to do when you have like the body aches, right? It actually almost cured me though.
I'd be hiring someone, no question.
Yeah, we didn't think of it because we were like, it's not that big a deal. It's a couple carloads. It's not like there's no like sofas and tables and shit. It was just like some boxes and stuff, but like over and over and get up and down the stairs. I'm like breathing, huffing and puffing and shit.
That's horrible.
Real man does that shit.
Yeah, and that's another example of why I'm not one. Is exactly. That right there? Right. So. All right, what else is going on? You want to talk a little baseball? I mean, the craziest story right now going on is this Trevor Bauer thing. I mean, it truly is nuts. It's bound to happen, but these guys going back and forth in today's media. I don't know how much you followed it on Twitter or whatever. But
we actually had Eno Saris on the show today.
I know. I was going to bring that up. I did happen to catch that. It was a really good segment. So do you want to talk about it? Or yeah, you had him. He wrote a good column on it. But I mean, the gist of it is just that Bauer basically accused the Astros of cheating. And Garrett Cole's spin rate has just skyrocketed since joining the organization. And there's other kind of hints that Bauer is testing the hypothesis and proving it himself. And his, as Saris pointed out, the first inning spin rate numbers are crazily high compared to the rest of the innings. And it's super interesting stuff.
Yeah, I mean, we used to talk about it in the Braves in like 1999. Like everyone who went to the Braves would like be lights out. When they left the Braves, they would suck, and everybody on the Braves was good. And it was, we think now like a pitch framing thing. They were like kind of advanced pitch framing.
Leo Mazzoni. Yeah, everyone loved Mazzoni.
Yeah, with Leo Mazzoni and just setting, with Eddie Perez, they were just setting up like a little bit outside. I wonder because when the whole team is striking out double digits all the time, you got to be like, oh, is it just, what a coincidence? Like, all those Astros pitchers are just so good. Now, Verlander was good already, and Eno pointed out basically that a lot of these guys, their spin rate was just about what it is now. It's barely higher. The only one who made a really major leap was Cole. But if it is in the first inning, and Bauer showed that if you use pine tar, your spin rate spikes, then maybe there's something going on. I don't know.
I looked up just for shits and giggles, pitches 1 through 15 for Trevor Bauer this season.
Right.
OPS against 380. His batting average against 111 on base. It's just ridiculous. Now, of course, everyone's first inning is typically the best. It's harder to go through an order second and third time.
Right. Sure.
You look at pitches 1 through 30, and they're drastically better for Bauer for whatever that's worth. I just looked that up after I saw this, this conjecture.
You mean Garrett Cole?
No, Bauer. No, Bauer.
But I thought
you know what's happening.
What's that?
So have you not read the Saris thing? No.
I did read it. I thought he did like an experiment or something.
Right, and doesn't Bauer's spin rate way higher in the first inning?
Yeah, I thought that, but I thought that he was like purporting to explain Garrett Cole's increased spin rate the same way.
Right. Well, I'm saying that the numbers of Bauer in those first innings, and I don't know if that was just a one-time thing. I thought maybe I misread it, but I thought he was comparing his first inning for this season compared to the rest of his innings. And I'm saying Bauer may do that before he starts. Who knows? This is all just conjecture. But what I'm saying, if Bauer is testing this, and that's what they said, check the data on Bauer's first inning compared to the rest. If he is doing that and only doing it in the first, his numbers he's dominating in the first inning.
Right. But that's kind of weird because he's the one making the accusation, and then he'd be the one cheating literally in the first inning. He'd be literally cheating in the first inning to try to out cheaters who might not even be cheating at all.
That's why the whole thing.
If there's some benign explanation where, oh, no, actually what's happened, but we didn't want to have to, go public with this, but now you're forcing us to, is that our pitching coach showed a new grip, and this grip increases spin rate, and everybody on the Astros already knew this, except Cole is new, so he learned this when he got here, and now, his spin rate is increased because he's throwing the pitch a little bit differently. The other thing Eno said was, he didn't say that, I'm just like making that up, but if that happened, then Bauer's like really fucked, because not only did he like falsely accuse somebody, but then he's also busted because he cheated.
Right.
And it's like, you can't just say, oh, well, I'm only cheating for the good of the public. I'm, for the sake of science, Right.
And then you also do studies and see how the spin rates, how people went to the Astros, how it carried over, and wasn't there wasn't anything significant there, was there? Well,
no, most of the guys he said that the Astros went to go out and get were guys with high spin rate. Like that was something that they valued already. And then the other thing is, he said that was interesting is that it could be kind of a classification issue of like, well, maybe Cole's four-seamer has more spin rate than his two-seamer, but they're sort of being classified together if they're like similar velocity or being misclassified. So the average is lower because it's counting some pitches that aren't really the four-seamer. Who knows, right? I mean, it could be nefarious. It could be pine tar. And then the other point was that apparently a lot of people use pine tar and it's not really enforced very evenly. So, he says, he interviews a lot of players and he said they just all speak to him like it's a thing, like a common occurrence. So. Anyway, it's good. It's an interesting topic. I don't know. It's one of those things like it's better than roids, right? Because was saying, well, what if you're not using it, and what are you supposed to do if you're not using it like everyone else is? It's like, well, at least it's not roids. It's just putting some pine tar in your hands,
No, this StatCast stuff is fascinating. I'm getting more into exit velocity and launch angle and all that stuff's great. But there's someone else who was pointing out that even today, not just 3 years ago, but today they still have some unknown balls, and they're just classified kind of. They actually. Just based on the trajectory, like they guess. And somebody even pointed out that Dozier's off to a poor start power-wise. And if you just took away the unknowns, his launch angle goes from career high to career low this season. So there's still a lot of stuff. And as you just pointed out with Garrett Cole's classification, a lot of noise in these numbers still, even though we're trying to get, precise.
Yeah, I'm really of two minds with this stuff. Like I respect the data guys. And I think like, okay, you shouldn't like bury your head in the sand and be like, oh, I don't listen to data. I just go with my, what I see and the basic stats. I get that. I get not doing that and saying, okay, let's find what the latest is. Let's try to get an edge. Let's be, up with the cutting edge technology and innovation in your area. At the same time, I feel like the more shit, remember it's BABIP. Oh, BABIP's the key. Now we know who's lucky and who's not. And how much of a fucking farce did that turn out to be? If I see a guy with a 340 BABIP 2 years in a row, I'm like, that dude sucks. He's a fucking strike thrower. He gets pounded. He doesn't know how to like throw out of the zone intentionally. He doesn't know how to get people to chase. He's getting pounded because all he does is throw in the zone.
And fundamentally, BABIP just always felt wrong. It just felt like it didn't make any sense. You're like, oh, the hitters control it, but the pitchers don't. It just, I don't know. So yeah, I'm with
that
you.
Was a fraud. You know what else is a fraud?
What?
UZR. UZR is bullshit. Those defensive metrics, they're mostly crap. So
and they,
people,
someone just backdated and changed stuff drastically. They just tinkered with some and backdated it and changed stuff. So yeah, I'm with you. I'm of two minds. I can appreciate the side for sure, but continue what you're saying. Finish what you're saying.
I'm just saying, like, a part of me is just like, there's always going to be, you get all this new data. We're in this age of big data, but there's always like interpretation of data and what are the inputs and like what's going into it. Like, oh, so before we just had these like, launch angles and exit velocities, and nobody was saying, oh, well, a certain percentage of these are unknowns. They're just guessed. We thought, oh, this is science, man. This is coming out. Like, no, it's not science. It's a bunch of dudes making this shit up. And, it's obscuring results. Last year, Miguel Cabrera's exit velocities were really good. And I was like, oh, I'll stick with him no matter how injured he is, no matter what a fucking flat tire he is. I'll keep him in my lineup because his exit velocity is really good. It's just a matter of time. Oh, wait, the whole Detroit exit velocity thing was calibrated wrong? I mean, you can't make this shit up. It's like so much shit. And so and it causes worse errors because if you didn't know that, you would just take it at face value. But now it's like making you do all these categorical errors. And one big one that I'm into is like just pitcher velocity, right? Pitcher velocity is big. But sometimes like, there's like reasons or pitches are miscategorized and so like I'm making big decisions based on, somewhat noisy data. And so it's like good to know all that stuff. But I feel like in the end, it's just, you watch the game, you look at the strikeouts, the walks, the home runs, the ERA, the whip, over time, and you watch the guy pitch, and you might learn a little bit by some, swinging strike rate and whatever else, but I don't know, man. I don't know. In the end, I just don't know how much of an advantage it is, and I know that it's been a disadvantage in many times when you can overvalue one particular stat or factor.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, no, spin rates specifically are interesting too because you want them for four-seam fastballs and curveballs, but you want low spin rate for changeups and I think sliders even. So you can misuse that data as well. But yeah, definitely imprecise and imperfect. I don't know what other baseball you want to talk about. The other interesting topic, more old school, just because they're fun to watch, are the Braves, man. I mean, what a young, exciting team. I mean, I don't even have a lot of shares. We have Acuna in League of Leagues. Right. I have Albies in a league that's not a ton of money involved. So kind of jealous. That's a sick young squad.
Yeah, when I'm jealous like that, when I have Acuna in that league with you, and I've won my home league, which is decent money, but it's not like I don't like get fired up like if I win. I mean, I'm happy to win it, but I'm not like it's not like a huge accomplishment. I just don't like it. Like I'm just like I hope they fail. I'm like fuck those guys. I do think that Acuna's been up 1 week, so nobody knows anything. But Albies has had a huge start, 9 homers, 3 steals, but he's gotten caught twice. I don't know. I wouldn't go crazy. Like people are like, where would you take Albies right now? I'd be like mid-third.
Sure.
I'm not taking him in like the second round, maybe the fourth. Be like, where would you take Charlie?
Yeah. You probably wouldn't get him there. I mean, that SunTrust helps. He's a switch hitter, helps lefty power. He's hitting leadoff. I guess in the NL, that's not ideal. I get. Okay, so you wouldn't get him, I'd say, if you're waiting to the fourth round.
No, I wouldn't get him. I'd be like, that's fine. I'm not saying that it's not a real breakout. It probably is. But if you don't have like, I don't know. I haven't really looked at his steals, whether he could steal 25, 30 bags. But if he does that, then, then you can be really a monster. I don't think he's going to hit 40 home runs or anything like that.
Freddie Freeman's so good, man. I mean, he's ridiculously good.
It's exciting for the Braves, and if you have those players, for sure. But I'm not one of those guys that's like happy for other people in fantasy sports. No,
I fully understand and endorse that.
I'm not like, oh, it's so great. I don't have any shares, but I'm just so happy for the people that drafted him. Fuck that. Like, what the fuck? That's nutless monkey shit.
Of course. All right, I have other random topics to throw at you. Do you have any more baseball? How are your teams doing?
Well, my main event is in 5th, and I was low in strikeouts, and I'm like every week I'm just trying to add 5 or 10 strikeouts. Mad Bum looks like he's ahead of schedule, which is good.
Now panicking Cueto's going to need Tommy John. As a Giants fan, it sucks. So can't complain. Warriors and obviously Jimmy G is the best thing ever. Yeah. But Giants season's already done after April again, second year in a row. Well, anyway, go ahead.
At least they're not the Dodgers. But the NL is really crazy. It's really upside down. I mean, you have
Nationals been disappointment. Yeah, it's weird. Yeah,
the Nationals every year they're always injured and they don't get it done. Bryce Harper's always awesome for like those first 2 weeks of April though. he's like the greatest first 2 weeks of April player in all time. I mean, he's amazing.
He moved the leadoff yesterday, or when was that? Today or yesterday? He hit a homer, but anyway,
that dude's a bum. He just can't keep it up.
I think he's okay.
Yeah.
So your team.
I was actually thinking, you know how Stanton has done absolutely fucking nothing? When Harper had 8 home runs in like the first week and Stanton was striking out every day, I almost was thinking of just offering Harper straight up for Stanton in one of my leagues because I had Stanton ahead of Harper, right?
Sure.
And of course the Stanton owner is going to snap call that. I probably still would if I did it. I think I would still take Stanton, but the problem with Stanton, he's got a little Buxton in him. He's got a little bit of nutless monkey where he just
wrong.
needs to get hurt and like.
Well, so does Harper, no?
Harper does too. They all do. All three of those guys. The injuries are just out of control.
I have a lot of DJ LeMahieu and Miguel Sano and a lot of
both those guys in the main event.
And they announced Sunday night it doesn't look like a DL trip, and then of course they're gone for the whole week. It's tough. That's been a struggle for me. But otherwise, nothing new. Just baseball, whatever. We're in the doldrums. You watch any of the NFL draft?
I didn't watch a single.
Did you do the under the 5 minutes? As you promised.
Under came in.
Under came in. All right. So
the under 0.00001 milliseconds came in.
Oh, nice, impressive. So, any other thoughts? You probably talked about it enough, but the whole Barkley, you versus the stat heads.
Yeah, I got into it on Twitter. It's funny. I had one taker. I was talking shit, and JJ Zachariason stepped up and took on the debate. And he's very nice. It wasn't like a fuck you debate. Fuck you and you're an idiot. It was like, well, here's why I disagree. It's like one of those. And it's fine. I mean, he's a nice guy, and he's actually I respect that. When I read an article that he wrote about it, and he writes in clear argument English. He doesn't try to rely on they have their proprietary metric, which I never value internal metrics, but he does put it in yards per target and makes his case in a way that a regular person could understand. So I do appreciate that, but I just disagree with most of it. In the article, he was talking about how. He made a couple of points, and one of which was that, the passing game is more important than the running game. Okay, and the argument for that is that the average pass play is 7 yards, right? 7 YPA is about average, right? Now there's sacks and interceptions which cut into that, but even with those, it's better than the average run play, which is 4, right? It's 3 yards more. It's almost double, right? But if you were to take that to its logical conclusion, then you should just never run, right? You just always pass.
And I wonder if there are more fumbles on pass plays than run plays?
I think it's close. Quarterbacks fumble a lot, receivers occasionally fumble.
But they're also by far the most likely position to recover their own fumble, too, is a quarterback.
But receivers also – but when the other team recovers it, it's the most devastating because it's usually going the other way for a touchdown.
Right.
But whatever. Okay. Interceptions – obviously there's more turnovers on pass plays because of interceptions are added. And then sacks also come with the risk of quarterback injury, which running plays don't. But let's just put all that to the side, and let's just concede that the average pass play gets you more net, gain than the average run play. That's just factually true, and it's probably by a decent margin. But by that logic, why wouldn't you just pass every play? You should just throw a pass. You should never run the ball. Well, why can't you do that? What's the problem with that?
Well, because the defenses would gear toward that, and that number would come significantly down.
Right. So you must run at least 25% of the time. I mean, the minimum people run is 37 is the lowest in the league. But I'd say the floor has got to be, I'm conservatively 25. It's probably 35. Let's just say 25 is the absolute lowest.
That's right.
So you can't just compare running plays to passing plays and leave it at that because you need a certain amount of running plays. It'd be like saying well, home runs are better than steals in fantasy, so I'm just not going to draft any steals guys. Well, no, you must have steals to compete in an overall contest. You can't just not get them. So it doesn't matter so you must get running plays.
Well, yeah, that number A exists because of number B. I mean, because of the running.
Right. It's not even that people are you got to run to set up the pass. No, if you pass really well, you could probably set up the run. But regardless, you need to run the ball. It's not like you can compare. You can't just act we can just do without this part of the game. So you have to compare runners to runners and passers to passers, not the other way around. Okay, so comparing passers to passers, there's literally 28 teams, and probably more if you count Flacco / Lamar Jackson on the Ravens, that have their franchise quarterback. I mean, you could maybe take out Case Keenum, but he just signed a deal with Denver. and he had a good year last year. There's 28 teams that have either a top 10 pick starting for them, an obvious star quarterback, or a longtime veteran who's clearly their guy, like Phillip Rivers or somebody like that, or Andy Dalton. So quarterbacks aren't even scarce anymore. Like everybody has one, pretty much. Even you might not think Mitch Trubisky or Pat Mahomes is a franchise quarterback, but he's the franchise quarterback. I mean, he's the guy they drafted to represent.
How dare you, Pat Mahomes? How dare you? I have him ranked 6th in my fantasy QBs right now. How dare you?
Right. So, like, everybody has a quarterback. I mean, literally, you look at it. The only ones I said don't are Eli, Bortles, Tannehill, and Flacco. And even they're like, Bortles was taken with a 3rd pick.
Bortles, nearly went to the Super Bowl.
Right. Yeah. And, there's really no team that has no quarterback at this moment, right? The Bills drafted their QB. But, Eli's pretty shaky, whatever. Okay. So,
except for the one team that you're arguing, which is pretty funny. That's the one team that you're arguing for taking a running back.
Eli, they need a replacement, but literally it was, it's so hard to get a quarterback. The problem is a lot of these quarterback truthers, they argue as though, like, if you don't get the quarterback in the first round, then you're going to be with Tom Savage or Trevor Siemian or Brock Osweiler, right? That's Deshaun Kaiser. That's what you're stuck with, right? But, like, that is the rare exception that you're stuck with one of those. The norm is that you have Case Keenum or Tyrod Taylor or Andy Dalton or, any number of these guys that are perfectly good. When you're like, oh, we have to get Marcus Mariota, it's so important to get a franchise quarterback. We have to get Mitch Trubisky. Really? It's so important to have Mitch Trubisky and not Case Keenum, or Mariota and not Kirk Cousins, they're all the fucking same, most of these guys.
And you're not even arguing against passing either. You're arguing that the system should deserve more credit than the quarterback's getting.
In most cases. Obviously Aaron Rodgers, Russell Wilson, Andrew Luck, if he ever stayed healthy. There's a few guys that are difference makers. But
Jimmy G, I know. Yeah.
What's that? Oh,
Jimmy G.
Yeah, well, we'll see. We'll see if he is. He's in Shanahan's system, so it's going to be hard to separate.
Oh, yeah. Well, that's when you have a combination of both. You get just something we've never seen before. We'll
Walsh, Montana. You can go debate all day whether it's Rice, Walsh, or Montana. But if you rooted for the 49ers in the 80s, you don't really care. You're just happy to have it. Right. Anyway, so yeah, the system's a huge part of it. It's really easy to get them. If you guess wrong and you get a Jamarcus Russell or a Blaine Gabbert, it sets you back like 2-3 years. So there's all these reasons against taking the quarterback. And then if your quarterback doesn't pan out right away, like Russell Wilson, by the way, 3rd rounder or whatever, then, if he gets out of his rookie contract by year 5 or whatever, you're getting Matthew Stafford, Derek Carr money. Now he's not even right. Under the cap. You're not even getting anything out of that. You're just breaking even. I mean, he's $28 million of your cap.
No, that's the time to go for it. That's why they were so good, Seattle, for 5 years, is because they could spend their money elsewhere, and that's exactly why the Eagles just won the Super Bowl. Right. The Eagles could just spend all their money elsewhere, did not have to spend it at the quarterback position. So that's what teams are doing these days, and it's smart.
Yeah, no, it is smart if you get a guy that pans out right away, away. And most quarterbacks take a little development time. So there's all that. The other thing is I looked at the top 10 QBs in the last 20 years. Since 2000. No top 10 QB has really, Cam Newton's been really good. Matt Ryan's been really good. Andrew Luck's been really good. That's the best since 2000.
Right.
Those guys are really good. If you get one, Stafford's been pretty good. But a lot of it's just, okay, so now we have Jameis Winston. Great. All right, we got Jameis Winston. They literally, Tyrod Taylor and Case Keenum, those guys are almost free.
And even 5 years ago, this was even worse because it would cost you a lot more of those draft picks, or however many years it was. Those are the biggest contracts.
Right. Now, there is a little window where they think if we can get the quarterback going right away, we can win. Okay. Right. Then the second thing is I saw, there's a few more things, but I saw the presser with Gettleman and Pat Shurmur, and I actually felt kind of confident after that. I was like, Gettleman's kind of a character. He's kind of goofy.
When he's mocking the keyboard typing, you felt more confident coming away from that?
No, I just thought those guys are just, no. So he decided to take the guy he wanted to take, right? And those guys are mocking the shit out of him all over the place for doing that. So why shouldn't he mock them as being oh, these keyboard jockeys are fucking mocking me? Why?
All right. Okay. All
right. You were offended? You feel like you identified?
No, I wasn't offended. No, but my feelings hurt, actually. I want an apology, an official apology. Yeah. It's fine. No, it's fine. I like your contrarian view, and having a really good running back, especially one that can catch, is a big. It does help.
But I'm going to take it even further though. Okay, because not only so you have to run the ball, right? The other thing is, let me ask you this. Okay.
Okay.
Let's say you have a team that gains 3 yards per play. So we established like passing per play on average is 7, running is 4. Let's say you have a team that it only gains 3 yards per play total on offense. Where does that rank in today's NFL? What number team would that rank? 3 yards per play average.
Per play?
Yeah, your team, your offense average.
I don't know this. I don't know this stat, but I follow after the games. Per 3 yards per play, that'd be last.
Last by a mile.
By a mile.
Last is usually like 4.9 or something like that. Okay.
I was gonna guess 5. Yeah.
By a mile, it would be last. But let's say you got 3 yards every single play. How do you think your team would do that season?
Well, it'd be the best ever. It'd be unbeatable.
It would never fail to score a touchdown. And the only way it could lose is if its defense gave up a touchdown every time. And because it was slow to score, because it would be very slow, it didn't get there. It like had one fewer possession. If the defense could make one stop, it would go undefeated and win the Super Bowl.
That's right.
The defense would need to make one stop a game. That's it. Okay.
Yeah, assuming no false starts, I guess.
No, just average 3 yards a play out. No penalties, right?
Okay.
And so the thing is, so you don't. So what does that mean? Why is that the case? How could you be like by far the worst offensive team in history, and yet be the best offensive team in history? How is that possible for those two things to be true at the same time? Well, because there's this weird rule in football that you may have heard of, that if you get 10 yards, your downs reset. Did you know that rule?
Yeah, I've heard.
Within 4 downs, if you gain 10 yards within 4 downs, you get to start over at first down.
Right. You even get 4, even not just 3.
So, yeah, you get 4 full downs if you're not a nutless monkey coach.
Right.
So this is really weird because what it means is the average per play is one factor. Obviously, it's very good to average the more yards per play, but it's actually consistency in a lot of ways that wins the game, because all you got to do is be able to get first downs consistently, right? So if you average a lower amount per play, but you rarely take a sack, you rarely take a loss, you rarely turn it over, and you get a lot of 5-yard gains, 6-yard gains, 4-yard gains, 7-yard gains, you actually might be better than a team that gets a lot of big plays but makes a lot of mistakes and gets a lot of incomplete passes.
Does any team throw to their backs more than the Patriots? I think that they've just found the cheat code. I mean, it's a cheat code. It's the cheapest yards. Yes. I mean, it's so simple.
You wouldn't be thrown to the backs as much if you just had, like, say, 8 downs to get down the whole field. Right? The fact that you start over is it's a very important rule, right? And so these sort of net, to say, oh, well, yards per target the favorite goes to this. It's also the consistency. How consistent are you? Okay. How about another thing I'm going to ask you? In baseball, if a player has a 1-0 count or a 2-1 count, do you know that what do you think his batting average is better than players league wide that have a 1-2 count or an 0-1 count?
By a mile.
It's much better. Right.
Yeah. An 0-1 count, I think you become like the worst hitter in baseball, basically. Right. It's that drastic. Yeah.
So if you're in a hitter's count, it's really advantageous. If you're in a pitcher's count, it's not. Do you think a similar thing might be happening when you're 2nd and 4, 2nd and 5, 3rd and 2 versus 2nd and 9, 3rd and 7 with the QBs?
That would make sense, yes.
Right.
That would make sense.
So not only do you have to run 25% of the time, so you need those running plays, but that the success of some of your early down plays, I mean, you could pass on early downs. I think teams should, and make the defense as off balance as possible. But to the extent that you're going to run, if you have a running back that can put your quarterback in hitters' counts and an offensive line, and they drafted Will Hernandez in round 2 to help and sign some offensive linemen, it's going to make it a lot easier. Eli was terrible, but he was always 3rd and 9. And they're running Paul Perkins and frickin' Orleans Darkwa into the teeth of the defense twice, and then, what are they going to do?
No, I know. It's the most predictable play calling I can remember last.
And you have a non-mobile QB that, is going to be with a bad offensive line.
With horrendous running backs. People let's just admit how bad the running backs are. I mean, they were just horrible.
They were horrible. So, so I think there's like cascade effects. And then you have
give receivers a hard time, or even left tackles a hard time, but I never hear like as much criticism. Like those running backs, they're just terrible on that team. I mean, everyone wants the next guy to take over to be a stud, Gallman, or who's that? Yeah, I mean,
Darkwa Gallman.
Your dark horse showed some flashes, and I was guilty as much hyping them. But it's also the system too, right? They didn't run block very well. Right.
So you had like a bottom 5 offensive, system. You had a bad offensive line. and you had
I'll
bad
never
running
forgive you.
backs.
I won the Fantasy Pros competition 2 years ago, #1 fantasy ranker for football before the season.
Right.
Last year, I assume I'm going to be toward the very bottom, and partially I'm going to blame you because I bumped Paul Perkins up like 12 spots at the last second because I'm like, I really trust Liss in general.
That was 2 years ago, though.
My first mistake. My second mistake, though, he's a Giants guy, so I figured he must know. So I
No,
bumped him up
2
like
years ago. I didn't. Paul Perkins was out of the mix by last year, I think.
No. This was last year.
Oh, really? It was last year.
I promise.
That seems like a decade.
You had Paul Perkins as a top, like around your 20th ranked running back in your year.
He was okay. All right.
Yeah.
Win
it's okay. All right, go ahead. Carry on.
Listen, I'm glad that I ranked him that wrongly just to see that it took you down.
Yeah, you don't even go on record or anything. You don't even have like a fantasy. No one even.
Well, I do rank the players. I've talked about this. I don't do this dumbass contest. It's so dumb, but I do my rankings. So I mean, there's so many reasons that this sort of simple analytics. Oh, see, more yards per play. There's so much more complexity to the game. And when the Patriots are taking a running back, it was 31, not 2. But Lamar Jackson was still there. Is there not? It's still a first-round pick. Yeah. But they don't give a shit about these guys. Oh well, the yards per play. They don't care. They do their own analytics. They have their own understanding of the game. And I think the idea that running it through like a yards per play comparison or something, to me, that's not very good. The other thing that I really disagreed with was, if you look at Marshall Faulk, he's just but another running back. And if you grade him out yards per play versus some mediocre receiver, I think he used Eli Rogers as the example, compared him to Le'Veon Bell. It's like if what you're saying basically ends up concluding that A, you should basically throw every time, which is not true, or B, that like Le'Veon Bell and Eli Rogers are roughly equal value, either you've stumbled upon a really startling insight that is, whoa, this is eye-opening shit, or maybe you got to rework it.
Looking at the wrong thing. Yeah.
It's like, to me, it's like, look, I'm not saying I know everything, or the casual fan or the eye test is whatever. I'm not a professional scout, and even professional scouts are ignorant in a lot of ways. But if your formula can't tell me that Marshall Faulk is an extremely valuable player, not just, he's more valuable than most running backs because he catches passes, and Barkley could be like that maybe. But no, that he's an extremely, extremely valuable player. If it somehow like, puts him, he's sort of like a little bit above average wide receiver. He's kind of like, he's like a Brandon LaFell. I'm sorry. Like, I think
people are arguing that is an argument.
I think that if you look at like yards per play in the passing game between, Marshall Faulk versus like a Brandon LaFell or somebody, I bet it's close. Brandon LaFell maybe gets more, but you can't look at first order effects only. You have to look at, what's the defense doing because of Marshall Faulk? Who has to watch him all the time? What plays does he make that another running back doesn't make? How much duress is the QB under that he sort of rescues him from a sack and turns it into a 20-yard gain? There's just so many. I just think it's a very complex thing, and it's so the idea that it's so crazy to take a QB at 2. I just think it could be wrong. I'm not saying that I know everything and that that I've crunched some serious numbers, because I haven't. I just think that the arguments against it are just so far from persuasive to me. And the way in which they're wielded is like, this is what was optimal, but these guys just did this dumb thing, and maybe they'll get lucky. I just think that's really presumptuous. And then the last thing, and I don't mean to be harsh because I don't want to sound harsh. There were some douchey guys, none of them that I interacted with, but JJ did tweet. He said it was an arrogant pick to go and get his guy, and I know what he meant by that. He meant like, how could he substitute his? He wants to just take this guy, but he doesn't want to look at the positional value. That's really arrogant. But like, isn't that kind of backwards? Like, it's his job to take. It's not arrogant to take the guy that you most want. It's arrogant to tell somebody whose job it is that they're being arrogant. Do you see what I mean? Like, it's like he's not towing the line. He's not fitting the orthodoxy, the sabermetric orthodoxy.
He thinks is clearly the best, obviously, right? Yeah, right.
You're not towing the sabermetric orthodox line, so you're being arrogant. I mean, isn't that where the arrogance is? It's his job. If he's wrong and it's a stupid pick and Eli's terrible and the Giants are in the wilderness because they can't rebuild because they don't have a QB for a while, then he'll probably get fired, But like, he's the one with skin in the game. It's his livelihood on the line, right? Like, it's not arrogant to take the guy you want. And then finally, something that Gettleman said in the press conference, a guy asked, he said, you guys were set on Barkley. He was like, yeah, pretty much. He said, were you ever close to talking yourself into one of the other guys like Darnold or, I don't know, Josh Allen or somebody? And he said, you just answered your own question. When you have to talk yourself into a guy, then it's probably a mistake. And I think that was a good point. Like, none of those guys, besides maybe Mayfield, who wasn't available, like it's not like they were Andrew Luck or Peyton Manning coming out of college. They were like, sure. They were all like, had their pluses and minuses. And, you don't just take any top 10 quarterback. You got to take the one that's going to be really good, or you pass. And there's, I don't know. I'm happy with the pick, and I'm starting to come around on the Giants when I was so miserable before. It doesn't look like they're trading.
They kept Beckham. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. No, I also liked I like a lot of the points you brought up. Excellent. And I like just being contrarian, but also just one thing that needs to be noted is that you aren't arguing for Barkley or these quarterbacks necessarily the player. It's just the idea of a running back versus a prospect quarterback. You don't have any, it's not like you love Barkley, the college tape or anything.
Look, I watched a couple of clips of him, right? And now I'm biased because he's a Giant now. Sure. But it's not that. It's that, from what I've read, Barkley's a generational running back prospect. I've heard a little negative, like his actual between the tackles running isn't amazing or anything. It's the vision in the open field and the speed and the power. But, from what I've read, he's a generational running back prospect, the best one since Adrian Peterson, and maybe better because he can catch. Maybe none of these
quarterbacks are considered anything even close.
Right. And none of these guys are generational, whatever. They're like, they could be okay, And so it's like, I don't watch it, so that's not my opinion. Those are secondhand opinions. But I mean, that obviously matters. If there was like Andrew Luck and Peyton Manning in the class, I would probably say you should take the QB. But that's not who these guys are. I don't know. I just feel like. It's absurd. It's not absurd to say they should have taken a quarterback. It's absurd to say it with snark and dismissive.
Certainty.
It's ridiculous. It's ridiculous.
Yeah, anything I'll say, anyone who thinks they're certain about anything, it just, and I'm talking about the whole community, it's just, they don't follow sports enough, because the one thing I'm certain about is that I should be uncertain. Because the bets I'm most confident in, often the ones I lose, the ones I'm shakiest turn out the bet. It's tough. So yeah, don't be certain at all. But anyway, I like the counter. Man. I'm going to throw you some random things at you now.
Sure.
Do you have anything else in sports? Okay. So what do you think about the Bill Gates situation? Have you heard about him warning that 30 million people could die of a flu pandemic, and he's, donating $12 million to looking into these flu vaccines? Have you heard about this?
No, but he's like the ultimate nutless monkey in my mind. The nutless monkey follows Bill Gates, and I don't really, I'm not saying it's impossible because I don't know, but that dude sounding the alarm would not, that dude's kind of, who knows? So
you're not a Bill Gates. Okay. All right.
I think Bill Gates is a tool.
I think one of the rare times I have seen my face representing the nutless monkey, I think I have seen you responding to him. So it makes sense to me that
mocking
you don't
Bill
like
Gates. I'll tell you, Bill Gates hosted the Saudi king or whoever that is, the prince, whatever he is, who's touring the U.S. to get support for war. And that guy they're bombing Yemen. There's a humanitarian crisis. There's a genocide basically going on in Yemen right now. U.S. is giving weapons to it, and that Saudi prince is part of that. He's the main part of it. And he's meeting with Bill Gates, Jeff Bezos. They're treating that guy like he's esteemed world leader. Why don't you come and
Well, he claimed that Trump offered him a science position in the White House too.
Bill Gates?
Yeah.
Yeah, I wouldn't doubt it.
So, all right, okay, you haven't heard of that.
That wouldn't be Trump's worst hire. Trump is definitely willing to hire whoever.
And you're not worried about the flu pandemic when obviously the super volcano is going to be a problem.
I'm not worried about the flu pandemic. I mean, anyone can catch the flu. A lot of the vaccine, I wouldn't take the vaccine. A lot of them have mercury in them, and a lot of them don't match. They don't always. It's hard to match the exact strain that you get. So much of the time, it's ineffective. If people were dropping dead from the flu, left and right, not 95-year-olds who were going to die anyway, but young people, then I would get the vaccine. Yeah, but I'm not persuaded by Bill Gates.
Gotcha. All right. I want to follow up a little bit. I talked about, because this happened right before I think we were recording, but that Golden State Killer. Have you followed up on that at all?
We talked about it last week.
I know, but I
love that dude.
Followed some more details though. They're insane.
He was taunting people.
I want to tell you a couple.
Right,
so he would put the significant other, the husband, the boyfriend, in a room and make them lay on their stomach and put china on their backs.
Right.
And then take the wife or girlfriend over in the other room for all night, just horrible, horrible. And be if that china's broken, when I come back, I'm going to kill you. It's like, to think about that. Like, I've seen the worst horror movies, the worst writers. No one can think of that. That is like demented shit. Like, he's sitting there for sometimes 4, 6, 8 hours listening to what's happening and having China on his back that he cannot move if it breaks, he's going to kill him. Another time.
Well, real man breaks the China and then takes the jag of China and kills that killer.
Right. Okay. Well, then this other one.
Are you going to sit there and wait?
There's a
nobody. Well, the thing about sitting and waiting is so stupid, because like, if that dude's crazy enough to kill you because you broke a piece of china and he's with your wife by himself, you really think that he's not going to kill her too?
Well, he let a lot of these people go. That's how we know this happened. He let them go.
Oh, he did let him go.
Yeah, that's how
I would have found out, because I would have had to have it out.
It's funny you say that, because here we go. So now we're learning more information. There was a town hall meeting while this was going on in Sacramento. A couple hundred people, local community. One guy came up, spoke in front of the 200 people, and he said, how could a husband allow this to happen to their wife? I would never in a million years. I cannot believe this. But not 2 weeks later, they were targeted. And it's now learned that dude was in that town hall meeting almost certainly. And they said he spent extra time with this guy. It was different with this guy. So, I mean, this is like, obviously a movie's going to be made. I mean, he's been married 45 years. He has 3 daughters. For all we know, one of his daughters is the reason he was caught. I mean, someone shared at a genealogy website, and they did a Hail Mary and through this, and they linked to him, and they found his. But it's because someone in his family voluntarily put that information.
He would have got away with it otherwise.
Yes. I mean, this is just crazy. But anyway, that's nuts. But
he was a former cop, wasn't he? A cop?
Former cop, yes. And he was fired because he was caught shoplifting a hammer and dog repellent. I mean, you can't make this stuff up. It's crazy. On a much better note, this is dead serious. I'm going to tweet this out, but my close friend, she had to go through cancer for a second time, and it looked very, very grim. She did a blog post, and I'll go to my Twitter at Dalton Del Don. I'm gonna tweet this out. But the reason I really want to say it is because it could reach anyone. She credits the keto diet. Stanford said that enjoy your family and you have till Christmas. And they said, we have no more hope for you because of her kidneys are failing. You should read the whole thing. But she changed her diet, and she's in almost full remission. And it's amazing. She went on a trip to Hawaii for a week in between this, when she really honestly went on a trip, I think, just to be with her family. Right. And she went off it and ate some pineapple and said, could not believe how much that one day affected her. Went back on the keto diet. It saved her life, dude.
Right. I've read shit like that. That's amazing that you actually know someone.
My close friend, who's my age, 35-year-old woman, 2 kids, was given a death sentence. Right. And 4 or 5 months later, it's a lot better.
It's amazing, and I don't want to take a positive and spin it to a negative, but it's a negative that all these fucking doctors, they charge so much. Stanford. It's so expensive. They're getting paid all these salaries, and it's not that should be the first thing you try before the chemo, before the drugs. Just, you have a little bit of cancer, it's spreading. Just go on this. Just go totally out. Not that it would cure everyone, but just.
So she already beat breast cancer, and she did chemo, and she couldn't do chemo this time because her kidneys were failing, and doctors didn't know why.
Toxic. It was too
toxic. And she switched this diet, and now she could do. I mean,
it's just it's amazing that happened. That's great news.
And the doctors, and she went to another doctor, and he's like, I'm not sure, but I don't think that's it. And then he called another, and he learned. So people, even in the medical industry, they're learning too.
Why don't they know this? Why don't they know this already?
How is
it that you know this, and that I've already heard of this, and that your friend figured out? But the medical system, it's like last resort. You got to be on your deathbed before they'll try this shit. It's really fucked up.
So
I put money in that. There was $0 in fucking fasting and just eating meat. There's no money in it. You can't patent it. You can't administer it. I'm telling you, man, knock on wood, I hope I don't get into a car accident or something where you need medical care, where it's not your. I'm just trying to avoid the system at all costs. Eat right, fast. I'm actually fasting today because I couldn't do it Monday because I was sick and moving. But it's the most. It's just just don't even get involved. But that's great. That's great.
They want you to get sick by eating their sugar crap, and then they want you to eat that to spend money on it, and then you'll get sick and you'll spend money there to get better.
And you'll live a miserable. Even if you don't die, you'll be on diabetes medication, and you'll be weak, and you'll have no energy, and it's beyond It's literally I pull my brain out of the Matrix or whatever it is a little bit. You see that movie, and when you see the movie The Matrix in 1998, you're like, oh yeah, The Matrix. I'm not in The Matrix. I see other people in The Matrix. You think that you're free thinker, but then you're like eating the same shit that everyone else is eating. You don't even question that, right? And then you start to question one little thing, and you start questioning another little thing, and then you realize the whole fucking thing's a shambles. Like the whole thing's a fraud.
I saw someone. Go ahead.
Literally, the money you spend is like inflatable, and it's like you're using it. You know, somebody described it as like you're the client and it's on a server. You know, so it's like in the cloud, and they can just pull it away. It's like the data. It's their money. They can just inflate it to the point where the stuff you have is worthless. Like all the stuff we have is so flimsy and but there's like solutions around it, obviously, and that's like the Bitcoin was created, and we'll see if it lasts. But that's like another matrix removal thing, and so every single time I learn of these things, like your friend or just I've read about that kind of stuff also, and like how sugar is marketed and you know the fact that it causes illness. You just start to like remove a little bit further from like what is normal belief. You know, and you don't realize, like, I'm sure now I have 1,000 in the matrix beliefs that I'm not even aware of. Like, it's not even, I take it for granted that this is a fact or that this is true or that this is how things are done. But it's crazy.
And I just believe authority who tells me it must be, especially when you learn it all growing up. So it must be true if the government or whoever is telling me.
Your doctor? Your doctor is looking after you. He's the family doctor that you go to. Yeah, of course.
No. Yeah, it's good. It's funny you mentioned the Matrix. I saw someone tweeting. He's like, Trump has been nominated for a Nobel Peace Prize, or he has like 17 votes or whatever it takes to get. And he's like, if Donald Trump gets a Nobel Peace Prize, like we are officially a part of some sort of observation, of some sort of simulation. We are in a matrix or something if that happens. But anyway, I had a rough last year and a half. So this is some good news. And man, just most importantly, apparently this really can work. Maybe not for everyone. I mean, everyone's probably a little bit different, but this I just saw this firsthand save someone's life. So pass that on if you know anyone dealing with this kind of stuff. The keto diet. Yeah, that's good shit, man. And it probably doesn't work for everything, but it probably works for like more things than you would think. Some people realize. Yeah. All right, man. That's all I got for you. All right, man. Good talking. That's a full hour. We're good. All right, man. All right. Later, Liss. Hey, one thing I always forget to do this, but if you like the podcast, you feel free to like it in iTunes, and you can leave a comment about Dalton Del Don's polo shirt, my scarf, whatever you like. And that's it. That's all we got. All right, take it easy, man. All right, later, Liss.